Yep. So my name is Jakob Svendsen, and I do a lot of automation and some more PowerShell and automation. I've been doing that for the last 8 years in the company called Cortec. You might have heard of us. Right here at the conference, I'm going to have one session together with Vlad Jovanovic from Microsoft. We're going to talk about different automation scenarios where we hook together different systems using webhooks, using event-based triggering of different actions. So for instance, if you get an email in your Office 365, you have all 365 call your runbooks and start them instead of polling every 5 minutes, for instance. So that's about it. What about you?
I'm Christopher Mank. I'm a systems architect with Concurrency. I do a lot of different things, a lot of automation like Jakob. A lot of that. I'm also our lead technical architect on our DevOps service offering. So I do a lot of VSTS, help a lot of transformation of folks on the TFS side, VSTS, build automation, release automation. At MMS this year, where we're talking about VSTS. So we just had a session yesterday with Nathan Lesnowski. We talked about VSTS, DevOps, and then today our other session is around ARM and DSC. So we're going to have a DevOps flavor to that of how ARM, DSC sort of work together, how we can do things like infrastructure as code.
All right, I'm David O'Brien. I work for Versant in Melbourne, Australia as a so-called senior DevOps engineer. I don't like that job title, by the way. You don't engineer DevOps without jumping into the discussion straight away. At this conference, now here for the third time, and I'm going to talk about Git 101. I'm going to do an introduction to Git for the IT Pro. Even though I hope that some devs are also going to be there. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about Microsoft automation on AWS, so the other cloud that's out there.
The dark side.
Yeah, it seems so. So last year I did a couple of sessions around configuration management, cross-platform, so using Ansible to do configuration management on Windows, did a bit about Chef, did something on ARM, all of that, and those topics all already assume you're using source control. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I then found out during my sessions that nobody was using source control. I figured for that audience, or for the audience here at the conference, I might be a bit too early in the game. And then when I went to your session yesterday, all the hands went up.
All of them.
Might be just a topic, but just by talking to a couple of attendees this year, over the last couple of days, more and more people are using source control. Maybe some of my sessions last year triggered some thoughts that people are going to use source control, that they should be using it. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually really happy that maybe at my session today, I'm going to see a couple of more hands, and they already know what Git is all about and why they should be using it.
Yep. Yeah, so I think we can single-handedly thank David for source control. No, that's good though, because you're right. In our session yesterday, there was all the hands basically went up. Like I had this full expectation, like who uses source control, and it was going to be like 3 people, and it was going to be like source control. That's OneDrive, right? But no, all the hands went up, and which is a good thing that folks are getting more into that sort of development cycle, source control. So that's good. It's good to see that.
Yeah, and also we have the hackathon this year, and we have in our team in Cortec. That's also the reason I only have one session, but But one of the most voted, we had 4 different topics. The second most voted topic was to bring source control to SCCM. So we're actually going to do that today, like a proof of concept. So we're going to integrate to GitHub or something like that. But it shows that even the admins of Config Manager now wants to use source control for the different parts inside Config Manager. So it is really spreading. And I think maybe people were coming to your session and then they went straight back to their room, started using source control, and then came to your session.
That's great.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Also, if you start to define your infrastructure as code, as you guys also talk a lot about DSC, and you can deploy a completely new environment with the new changes in it, and you can have it running, you can test it, and then you can actually just switch over to the new environment when you know it works, and leave the old one, save that for any kind of rollback. But it makes it much more flexible and a much more robust structure to go with.
I think my key takeaway from the last conference in November was that we jump a bit too far. Like we go straight into that. This is how you develop DSC resources. This is how you go and use Azure Automation, but not really the basics. So nobody's really telling you why. Or, yes, we're doing DevOps. Well, you don't. You're using a tool. You're not doing DevOps. So your session yesterday was actually really, really good. And it didn't just focus on, yep, you're using this tool, so you're doing DevOps, because that's not DevOps.
Right.
And that's kind of what frustrates me with not just this conference, but the whole IT at the moment, or on Microsoft's part, actually Microsoft is doing a good job at telling people, use Git, you're doing DevOps. Do this, you're doing DevOps. Nah, but you're missing the point. DevOps is about communication. It's about having people actually work together and not sit in a room and hack away. That's not DevOps.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you start with that culture of DevOps, it's you could do DevOps without automation. It would take a bit longer and wouldn't probably be as good, but you could. It's that agile movement, all of that, having quick feedback, having that a value add for the customer that you mentioned in your session yesterday, that you don't have to wait a year or 2 to get a new feature in and then figure out, oh, nobody wants that feature. Oh, great that we put that into our backlog 24 months ago and spent $1 million on it, and nobody's actually wanting it. So yeah, I think this year's conference is a lot more mature. Feels a lot more mature than last year's.
Yep. Yeah. I think the DevOps conversation is certainly changing in that I think people are becoming more familiar with it. They know the industry's moving towards DevOps, but I still think that there's this lack of understanding of what it really is. People think exactly like, oh, I have Visual Studio, I have source control, I'm doing DevOps. Like, this is all good. And it's interesting when you talk about DevOps and you get into 100 different clients, you're going to get 100 different answers. It's not like ITIL where it says, here's the framework, I'm going to shove you into this framework and you are now DevOps. It doesn't function that way. Everybody's different. We've done a number of DevOps engagements, and everybody's different about how they're structured, and what we recommend to them is very different. So depending on how their developers work, they may not have a dedicated operations team. They have developers that cycle in. That's the way they collaborate because it's the same folks. Or these really large organizations, they have separate development operations, so we work with ways so that you have that tight collaboration. Exactly, you don't necessarily need automation or to be doing the collaboration, but it certainly helps. So there's a lot of components, and I think people are still struggling to get their brains around what it is. But yeah, we can definitely see the audience at MMS this year is really sort of evolving and becoming better.
I also talked to the speaker called Rafael, and he has a session with Greg Ramsey. I think it's tomorrow on Thursday, and he was kind of changing his slides because he saw the other sessions were really technical, and he thought maybe this thing we talk about, it's also DevOps and continuous delivery, was not that technical. But I said to him, well, this is exactly what that's missing, that might be missing. There's so many technical sessions, and of course we need that, but it's also important to have the sessions speaking about the higher level and why we want to do this. I mean, why do we want a bike? Yeah, so I can get somewhere, not just to sit on a bike, right? I mean, you can even take it like that. So yeah, I think it's really important to have those kind of sessions too.
Yeah, I think this year's MMS is really focusing on the audience again, not so much on showing off cool features, but more explaining to the audience why they should be doing X.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, what the benefits are, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
The first thing you should do is freak out because you got left behind. Just kidding. There's a lot of great material out there that folks can do. When we sit down with customers and we'll do sort of a current state analysis of where they're at from a ALM, DevOps perspective, everybody's different. Everybody's at different sort of areas, and not just the whole thing. Like some of them are doing really good at source control, they're doing really good at continuous delivery, continuous deployment, they're doing really well in those areas, and then we get to like how they're doing infrastructure as code, and they don't even know what PowerShell is. Like, whoa, how can you be so mature here but so terrible here? But then there's other folks who are very strong in that area, but they're light in other areas. So everybody's different, and we'll sit down with them and give them a current state, and that's the hardest question is where to start, because there's so much. It's like, where do I start? So the recommendation I have is pick an area and start to build your knowledge and comfort level on that and start to expand. So don't freak out. You haven't been left behind. Another bus will come. There's lots of buses. So that you can get on and start to get more involved and start to build, upon that knowledge.
I think what Jakob just said was really good to hear, that config manager users or admins are now asking for source control for config manager. That was one of the reasons why I left that area 2 years ago, because it frustrated me so much that, like, admin calls me up saying, well, I've they copied a new version of an app, which is just a new folder onto a file share, and updated the distribution point, or thought they would. And after 2 hours of troubleshooting, we found out, they copied it to the wrong location. Because they had like half a dozen of file shares where they had packages for config manager lying around, and nobody knew where and which and all of that. So it's great to hear that config manager admins are asking for more control, more source code, more source control for their environments, to have more control, to be more in control of their environment, to be really precise. And then from there on, I would say start with the basics. Don't overcomplicate things. Like you said, pick one thing, and I would say use source control. Start with that. It's actually easy enough to get going with it. And you can use your current code. You don't have to jump straight into the advanced PowerShell. Use VB-script. If you've got VB-script right now, put that into source control.
Yeah, batch
Perfect.
files.
Batch files, if you must.
Yeah.
And then iterate on that. That's the whole idea behind Agile and DevOps, to iterate on what you have. Start with something, make it better. Make what you made better, make that better. Over time, and learn over time. Learn in those small chunks of bits. You can, and you're probably gonna die from it, swallow a steak in one big hole. But it's easier to digest it if you take small bites and
of course.
learn by that, and don't take one thing from this conference and learn that. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I also think that in the past years, people might have been afraid of source control systems because they might seem like a big beast. They have so many features, but you don't need to use all those features in the beginning. I mean, for instance, the config manager source control subject, I think it's because in applications in config manager, you now have revisions. And when people see, you can roll back to an old revision, that's really cool. We would like that for the other stuff. And that's exactly what source control is. You don't have to use issues and all the other stuff that you have in there. You can start by just saving revisions of your files and then keeping track of that. So I think with all the advances in Windows where you can have revisions of files and you have SharePoint with revisions of files, and people are getting throughout the last 8 years or so become used to that, and now they're ready to take the next step and actually push it into a more controlled system like a source control system.